my dear aspirants. I hope you are doing alright. Today at Ma Tutorials, we'll continue another important video of economics. We'll cover 5-year plans. It has been observed that there has been frequently questions related to 5-year plans seen in your examination. Furthermore, with the change in the structure of India's economic planning, Niti Aayog has become very important and the questions from Niti Aayog has also been seen. So let's start 5-year plan and cover whatever is most important for you for the NDA examination. So let's start. So when we see 5-year plan, it is observed that 5-year plan were first implemented by Stalin in USSR. USSR represents a predecessing body or a country which was previously there in the place of today's Russian Republic. So it was United Socialist Soviet Russia. So the idea was that it was a socialistic country and there were different Soviets working at different places. And 5-year plan was introduced in this country, and the idea was the central government would plan the economy of the nation and the same plan would be implemented throughout the economy in different regions and different places. So as we had already covered, that central planning is feature of socialistic government and is also seen in mixed economy. So that was also present in our economy. So let's cover the background of 5-year plan and let's move on to our part of economy and our part of 5-year plan. So then after 1929, the Chinese also adopted 5-year plans. In 1933 and 34, M. Vishveshwarya, a very known famous personality from India, he wrote a book called Planned Economy of India. Because of this book, people got awareness in regards to the idea of economic planning in our country. Once this idea was getting popular, Congress also realized that the idea of 5-year plan has to be the part of the freedom struggle and has to be part of the vision of India. So in Haripura session, the Congress formulated National Planning Committee under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru ji. The president of this session of 1938 Haripura was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Under his leadership, this body was formed, National Planning Committee, and this committee was chaired by Shri Jawaharlal Nehru ji. Let's move further. 1944, S.N. Agrawal introduced Vardha scheme based the idea of trusteeship. Gandhiji was a firm believer that economic development has to happen with the assistance of the people throughout our country. He suggested that, let's say if somebody is very rich, he has also this responsibility to ensure that the poverty is eliminated from our country. For that, what he'll do is, he'll utilize the money, whatever he has, for his requirement, and the leftover money would be used for the development of the people around him. So he'll take the responsibility of those people around him and try to develop them. This plan was introduced in 1944 based on the speech which Gandhiji gave in the Vardha session, in the Vardha ashram, sorry. So there was this ashram where Gandhiji was living after once this third roundtable conference was completed, and Gandhiji has decided that while he started civil disobedience movement, he had committed to himself that he'll only return back to Sabarmati ashram when he has got full independence for the country. But unfortunately that didn't happen. So he started staying at a different ashram called Vardha ashram. It is located near Nagpur. Let's continue further. So Bombay Plan in 1944 was introduced by some top industrialists of our country. There were 8 important industrialists then which included Tata, Birla and furthermore. So under the leadership of Arshil Dalal, this idea was presented. And you know, when there is industrialist present, he would want to have profit motives and he would want the economy to be little liberal rather than being a socialist kind of economy. So this plan was deviated from the idea of socialism and it was like wanting a mixed kind of economy or having a modern kind of capitalistic economy. Let's move further. KC Niyogi Committee. So once India got its independence, Prime Minister Nehruji decided that there should be a committee. That committee would decide what should be done in regards to 5-year plan, what should be how should the planning structure look like for our country's economy. So this KC Niyogi committee suggested that there should be planning commission in our country. Once there is planning commission in your country, this commission would help to evaluate, give feedbacks on the policies and also help in formulating the policies for the country. In 1950, planning commission was established as an executive body. Once planning commission was established, 5-year plans started coming into our country. So let's see. So let's see when did 5-year plans come in our country, and what was the tenures or periods in which they were executed or implemented. So first 5-year plan was implemented between 1951 to 56. Very easy. 50 mein this planning commission was established, and in 51 the first 5-year plan was brought in. Until 56 it was implemented. Same, it continued further. In 56 another plan came in, till 61 it was implemented. Another came in 61, it was executed till 66. So these are 5-year plans. So it is easy to remember that their tenures are easy to remember, because 51 to 56, 56 to 61, 61 to 66, so on it goes. Just you need to remember that there are certain breaks in 5-year plan. Just this one. This is the gap which takes place after 3 5-year plans. What happens in this gap is that because of certain issues or certain problems in our country, the government decided that rather than going further for a 5-year plan, we should take a step back and plan or take some measures which would fundamentally make our country economically stable. That is why gaps were created. So let's move further. Fifth 5-year plan, again 74 to 78. Again, if you see, this is a 4-year plan. So this is the only 4-year plan. So we'll discuss the story of why it is 4-year plan. Then again, there was 2 years of break, because there was other government which came into power, and they felt that 5-year plan is not the best way of planning. So other measures were taken for planning of the country, and there was no 5-year plan. Then again, Congress government came in. They started the 5-year plan concept. It continued till 1990, and there was economical disturbances in our country, because of which 2 years of gap was required. Then again it continued till 2017. But you know, when the current government came into power in 2014, they came up with the idea of Niti Aayog. So let's continue and look ahead or move ahead with the understanding of each and every 5-year plan. So let's discuss the most important points of first 5-year. See, it is called Herald and Domer model. So the names of models are very frequently asked in your examination. I have seen a recent question wherein the name of second 5-year plan was asked in the examination. So let's also cover the name of the 5-year plan, so that we don't miss out on the marks, which we can fetch easily. Herod and Domer model. The idea was that we'll have a 2.1% of growth rate, and we achieved 3.6% of growth rate, which shows that the plan was highly successful. So it was overall successful plan. Priorities areas are important for every 5-year plan. So you'll remember this: agriculture, irrigation and transportation. So Herod had this belief that agriculture and irrigation should be covered, and Domer had this observation that transportation should be targeted. Hence both the ideas were inculcated, and the objective was set. Priority was given to agriculture, irrigation and transportation. Let's move further, as the idea is to develop agriculture, right? So in order to develop agriculture, we need fertilizers, right? So Sindri mein there was this fertilizer plant made in 1951. Bhagra Dam was also initiated under the leadership of Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. He had called dams modern India's temples. So he has compared dams with temples, so that they bring prosperity and fortune to our country. That is why he called them modern India's temples. Chitranjan locomotive factory. See, one of the objective is also one of the objective is also to ensure good transportation. So if there is transportation will require train, locomotive, right? So Chitranjan locomotive workshop was also made in 1951. Population policy was also introduced to improve sex ratio, infant mortality rate, and that is why in 1952 first basically population policy was introduced. See, the idea was that if we have a population policy, we'll be able to manage or make our human resource more efficient. Let's say if there is a imbalance in sex ratio, so if we'll take some policy measures and ensure that men and women are in good ratio in our society. Same if there is infant mortality, अगर बच्चा बड़ी कम उम्र में उसकी मृत्यु हो जाती है, if we are able to prevent it, that would also help us to grow, right? So these fundamental challenges with population were undertaken in this population policy, and India was the first country to introduce such kind of policy. Community development programs were initiated. The idea of community development program was that government would indulge into certain activities which will lead to spread of benefit which government is trying to provide to the society. So these programs were such that it involved multiple people, multiple members of our society getting benefited out of it. So let's continue further. So let's continue with second 5-year plan. See, second 5-year plan is called Nehru Mahalanobis model. So जो ये Mahalanobis जी है, he is a very famous statistician. Okay, statistics pe he used to do research, and he was a famous scholar of statistics. Even he was the member of Royal British Society, and it is a privilege to be the member of it. And then he was best of the world. So Nehru ji along with him planned this 5-year plan, hence the name is Nehru Mahalanobis model. And on and this National Day of Statistics is also celebrated on 29 June because of Mahalanobis ji's birthday. He gave birth to Central Statistics Organization. First time adopted mixed economy. See, uh, Nehru ji, Subhash Chandra Bose ji, these leaders were part of Congress, who the part which used to promote socialism. So Nehru ji is a firm believer in socialism, and he wants to ensure that socialism is implemented in our country. But there are some challenges. Government doesn't have that amount of fund, and it's not easy to get funds easily because the world war has just concluded and the economies are not performing that good. So getting loan is also difficult. So what Nehru ji wants is, he wants private player to invest. They obviously, private player wants to be in the economy to make profit, right? But Nehru ji has allowed them just for the sake of certain sectors wherein government wants to go ahead, but financial restrictions are not allowing it. So that is why the concept of mixed economy first came in this plan. Objective was industrial development, focus on industrial development with heavy industry, particularly 3 iron and steel plants. See, this is to be understood. Heavy industry was targeted particularly. So what did we do? We made 3 iron and steel plants. See, iron and steel are fundamental to any industry. अगर आपको if you need to manufacture some heavy machinery, you will need iron and steel, right? Moreover, if you want to start some plants, that would also need iron and steel. There was a plant made in Bhilai with the help of USSR. Another we made in Durgapur. Durgapur is in West Bengal with the help of Britain. Raukela, it is in Odisha. We made it with the help of Germany. First time allowed private players to achieve capital intensive objective. So why did we allow private players? Because we wanted to achieve capital intensive objectives. So government को उसके लिए काफी पैसा चाहिए था, which was not very easily available. Hence government allowed this private players to play active role in these industries. So let's continue. See, now third 5-year plan comes in, and third 5-year plan was a very disturbed plan. Why? It was very disturbed because there were big challenges faced by our country, India. See, objective was agriculture and industrial development. It is most successful, unsuccessful plan. Why? Let's see why. 1962 war happened in this period. 1965 war happened in this period. So once there is war in our any country, the economic resources are diverted towards the war, right? So having good security is the priority of any government. Having sustenance is the first priority. So that is the reason our resources were directed towards fighting the war. 66 we saw a severe drought in our country. Drought aati hai, there is lack of water, and that lack of water leads to disturbances in our agricultural cycle. We are not able to produce agricultural goods. Now, three prime ministers were seen: Gulzari Lal Nanda, Desai ji, and Nehru himself, and also Shastri ji died in 1966. So, in this period, there was also political instability, economic instability, and hence this plan was obviously unsuccessful. Let's continue further. Now, once third five-year plan came, after this, Srimati Indira Gandhi ji came into power. She realized that further going with five-year plan is not a smart idea because we don't have that basis, or let's say that platform which is required to jump or take a leap. So in order to establish that platform, she decided that we'll take a 3 years of planned holiday. In this planned holiday, we'll take certain actions which would help us to make our economy fundamentally better, right? Treat the economy fundamentally. So ICAR, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, New Delhi, there is this PUSA Institute which is present, and there used to work a very brilliant agriculture related scientist, Mr. M. Swaminathan. So there was this big challenge of food supplies in our country. We were not having resources to feed our people. People didn't had food. So what do? We come up with solution wherein we are capable enough to produce for our own needs, right? So we dependent or relied upon HYV seeds, high yielding variety of seeds. Okay. So when there is high yielding variety of seeds, there is the output increases substantially. When there is high output in our society for the food grains, the problem of lack of food or starvation is also eliminated. So that was the plan. So I'll tell you an international phenomena. HYV seeds were first introduced by Mr. Norman Barlow. Norman Barlow was from Mexico, and in order to have more yield, more produce from the same piece of land, he came up with the idea of HYV seeds, high yielding variety seeds. Once high yielding variety seeds were introduced in Mexico, in some African countries, and some other regions, it was observed that general peace is established because there is enough food resources. Food sources are in enough amount. Because of this, he was also given Nobel Peace Prize rather than giving some science related prize. He was given Peace Prize. So, M. Swaminathan, inspired by Mr. Norman Borlaug, also introduced HYV seed in our country. So, he introduced Kalyani and Sona HYV seeds in our country. Later, G. Kushji, he was also an agricultural scientist. He introduced Jaya and Shushma. These are basically rice varieties. So the idea of distribution of HYV seed is started in our country. Government undertook this responsibility on its own and started distribution. So the trials started happening in Jind, but official distribution started in Pantnagar. It was earlier part of UP and now it is part of Uttarakhand. So here it started exponential yield of wheat production. It was observed that the wheat production has substantially increased in our country. The problem of starvation and related problems were also eliminated. William Goud, so he is an economist, he defined this phenomena as green revolution. And it is believed or it is said that in 1967, Mr. M. Swaminathan introduced green revolution in our country, and in our country he is called father of green revolution. Now there were certain shortcomings also of this HYV seeds or this green revolution. What were that? What were them? See, HYV seeds has this problem of requiring very high amount of irrigation water. It required a lot of water. Again, it also required a lot of fertilizers, a lot of manure. So this all these things were required in abundance. Okay. Also, there was one more problem. These HYV seeds are in a way not able to produce grains. Let's say if you are not visiting a shop and purchasing HYV seeds, then you won't be able to grow these crops. Earlier, what used to happen, the crops we used to grow, we could save some amount of wheat or rice, and the same wheat or rice could be used to further grow these crops. But now HYV seeds had this problem wherein they couldn't do so. It failed in South India, succeeded in Haryana, Punjab, and Western UP, created rich poor gap. See, now if you want to have or if you want to produce crops using HYV seed, you will require more water. That means higher irrigation facilities, better irrigation facilities, better manure or better fertilizers, better insecticide, and costly. These are all costly things. So a farmer who had big capital could invest in all these things and become richer further, right? But a farmer who was not that rich, he couldn't afford it, and he'll keep on becoming poorer and poorer. So the gap of rich and poor also increased because of these seeds. Depletion of soil, pollution problem of urea excessive use caused diseases. See, when HYV seeds were introduced, the requirement of urea increased because urea is a fertilizer and it helps in production of crops. So people started using more and more urea. The use of more and more urea affected the productivity of the land or led to pollution also. So let's continue further. Now after this, fourth 5-year plan was introduced so that now we stabilize, right? So fourth 5-year plan came into picture. The objective of this plan was self reliance. Okay, the idea was self reliance. Model is also called Ashok Rudra, LN Mane, or Gadgil model. So any of the three names would be all right because on the basis of these suggestions of these economists, this plan was made. LK Jha committee said that the banks who having turnover more than 50,000 crores would be nationalized. See, the idea is now government realized this, that if we want to have economical development in our country, if we want to have opportunity open for all poor, rich, everybody, every farmer, we would need to ensure that financial resources are available to everyone. Now, if there is private government or private bank, those banks would only target profitability. Their objective would be profitability. So if there is profitability, they'll give loan. If there is no profitability, they won't give loan. So LK Jha committee suggested that if there is a bank with turnover more than 50,000 crores, then this bank should be nationalized. See, so there were different banks which were nationalized. The idea of nationalization is government would approach the private authority or the private organization and say that we want to purchase you and will pay following amount of money and you should sell it to us. Now in this process, government takes over the complete control of the bank or the body and then runs according to its own principle. So the government's principle is ensure that the financial resources are provided to everybody, every citizen of the country. That is continued, that is implemented. And also in this plan we have seen 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War, and that led to refugee crisis in our country. So a lot of refugees came to our country from Bangladesh. Let's continue. Now comes in fifth 5-year plan. Objective was Garibi Hatao. Okay, it's very important. In the fifth 5-year plan, Garibi Hatao objective was given by Srimati Indira Gandhi ji, our then Prime Minister. This model is called DP Dhar model. RRBs were established. See, the idea was to ensure that the banks are in rural areas as well. Okay. So what government said that if you want to, let's say there is a bank, private bank or some other big bank, so that would be called as a sponsored bank, a sponsor bank. So let's say SBI wants to indulge into new business, which has a prospect of profitability, that is having banks in rural areas. So what government would do is government would provide 50% of financial resources to open the bank. 15% would be provided by the state government and 35% would be provided by the sponsor bank, that is in this case, in this example is SBI bank. So new RRBs would be established. So Prathama Bank was established in 1975 in Muradabad. Okay, so in Muradabad, Prathama Bank was established. The first time the program of population control was introduced in 1975. See, the idea of population policy was introduced in our country, and now this is population control program. See, in this program, basically the idea was that to ensure that male and female who the idea was to reduce the population or at least stagnate the population, and the people were motivated or driven to get themselves operated so that they are not able to produce furthermore kids. Okay. 1975 elections became election took place, and under violation of election model code of conduct, employees were used, as the government said, election 1975 on the ground. Okay. See, the idea is uh, judiciary declared these elections invalid because they had this proofs wherein it was found that government used government employees and also vehicles and other assets of government for the promotion of their campaign of election, and under these circumstances the government was deemed invalid. Rather than accepting the government's or judiciary's decision, Srimati Indira Gandhi decided that she'll go for emergency. She'll implement an emergency in our country on the grounds of internal disturbances. Emergency was declared. President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed signed on the paper, and hence emergency came into our country. And it was there in it stayed for around 2 years, and then again election took place in our country. See, when election took place in our country, it was found that for the first time a non-Congress government came into power. Okay, so when non-Congress government came into power, it had a different opinion. The opinion was that they didn't wanted to have 5-year plan. They believed that 5-year plans are not an effective measure to run a government. So they came up with an alternative method of rolling plans. Okay. So a famous economist called D.T. Lakkarwala suggested this plan, D.T. Lakkarwala plan. It was basically on the basis of rolling plan. It was basically the father or the person who gave the concept of rolling plan was Gunnar Myrdal. Okay, Gunnar Myrdal called 5-year plan rubbish. He didn't believe in 5-year plan, and the growth rate was very high, and he believed that 5-year plans didn't give as expected results as they should be. So he suggested that there should be a 20 to 25% year of bigger plan, that is a vision plan, 10 to 15 years of a broader plan, and an yearly plan. So have a vision for 20 to 25 years, break it down into 10 to 15 years of small segments, and yearly have plans, objectives, and implement them. So this plan was introduced for these 2 years, and because of political instability, this government couldn't continue its tenure. And in 1980, again Congress government came into power. They started their own 5-year plans again. Okay, so let's see what was there in this 5-year plan. The objective was self-reliance and self-attainment. Okay, so objective was self-reliance and self-attainment. The model name is export import model. It is also called export import model because there was a lot of focus on export and import. We were observing that China was doing very good, South Korea was doing very good, and other Southeast Asian countries were doing very good on the basis of export economy. So having international trade was helping them. So we also decided to do this. Again, 200 crore plus turnover, nationalized fixed bank. Okay. So further, there was nationalization of certain banks, and very important idea, Shiv Raman Committee. Shiv Raman Committee suggested that RBI should not indulge into agriculture credit and etc. And NABARD should be formed, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. So rather than having relied upon on RBI for agricultural development, there should be another body, another bank called NABARD that should undertake the responsibility of economical development in the field of agriculture. That should be providing, that should be focusing on credit for the agriculturists, and hence Shivraman committee became very important committee to remember for our examination as well. ठीक है. Unfortunate incidents of 1984 riots also took place in our country because Srimati then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ji was also assassinated, and unfortunately a lot of Sikh people had to face the brunt because of some political and unfortunate circumstances. Uh, in 1982, Exim Bank was also made. See, the plan's name is Export Import Bank. So in order to facilitate export and import, Exim Bank was also formulated, made. Continue further. Then next 5-year plan, that is seventh 5-year plan, came in 1985 and continued till 1990. Objective was food, work and productivity. So again there was this problem of food, work and productivity. So this objective was set so that we could increase this. And here the Prime Minister had changed. That was Shri Rajiv Gandhi ji became PM. Okay. In 1985, Indira Gandhi Awas Yojana was now introduced. Today it is called PM Awas Yojana. The idea is when you have infrastructural development, the economy takes a boost. It is seen that when government spends a lot of money in the economy, it has an expanding effect on the economy. Economy expands, it grows faster. Also, people would also definitely get awas, that is residence, or making housing facilities available to them. 1986 Central Rural Sanitation Plan was also implemented. 1986 Jawahar Rojgar Yojana was implemented. So these are plans wherein a lot of employment is being created, were introduced in this period, or seventh 5-year plan. Professor Raj Krishna gave the term Hindu growth rate. See, for the first time, 5% growth rate was observed in this 5-year plan, and Professor Raj Krishna termed it as Hindu growth rate. Nothing very unique, very important to remember, just for the sake of information that who gave this terminology Hindu growth rate. So it was given by Raj Krishna, because in this 5-year plan, for the first time, we achieved the 5% growth mark. So let's continue. Now, see, now we have entered in a phase wherein we are under turmoil or in a problem. Our economy is not performing well. and we have very big problem of balance of payment crisis. That is, we don't have enough foreign currency. uh, in order to understand, today we have billions of dollars with us, and we won't face any balance of payment crisis. If, let's say, if Indians are importing a lot of products from USA, we can pay them very easily because we have dollars now, and in exchange of dollars, and even if somebody wants to invest in our country, that is also very much possible because we have enough amount of foreign currencies available to us. But then there was a problem. We didn't had foreign currency. Our dollar reserves were depleting because we were importing more and exporting very less. So our dollars were getting depleted, going away, and we didn't had a lot of dollars. And see, every country has requirement of imports. For example, we cannot make fuel in our country, right? Fuel has to be imported, and international trade happens in dollar. So we faced a balance of payment crisis wherein we wanted to import things, we couldn't because we didn't had dollars left with us. So let's see what was happening. See, the Gulf War has started in this period, and once the Gulf War started, our good friends of Gulf, who had helped us a lot by giving us fuel or petroleum on credit, they started asking for the money which we owe them. They wanted to have that money back so that they could invest in the war. So because of Gulf War, also situation worsened. We only had 100 crore rupees in our foreign exchange, so it is very less amount. See, now a lot of people in our country would have this much amount at their home, right? The dollar was very few with us. 1991 USSR has also collapsed, and we didn't had anybody to support. USSR was our very good ally, and they were having their own problems. Now that was Russian Federation, but it was having its own problems, so they couldn't help us. Devaluation of Indian currency had already started. We have kept a lot of gold with certain other countries. 75,000 kg of gold was present with Switzerland, Japan, and already with other countries. The idea was that we have kept this gold with other countries as uh, in order to have some dollars in exchange of it, so that we can run our economy effectively. And already we were under a lot of pressure because already we have taken this step. What further we could do? We couldn't do much, right? So we went to IMF. IMF. IMF stands for International Monetary Fund. It is an organization which came into being in 1944 under Bretton Woods Conference. So the idea of IMF was that whenever there would be balance of payment crisis in any country, this organization would help, right? And IMF, a lot of country invest in IMF. They keep their money in IMF, and a lot of money was from USA, and we didn't had very good bonds with USA, right? So the call was, because USA had a lot of assets in IMF, to get loan from IMF was basically dependent upon US's assent. So let's see what we did. Okay. So under the suggestion, as IMF also suggested, like as we know that USA is a capitalist economy, they had their own capitalist viewpoint, and they had some opinions that they believe that if undertaken, our economy would stabilize and become a performing economy. So then Prime Minister Sri Narasimha Rao ji, under the leadership of then Finance Minister Manmohan Singh ji, introduced liberalization, privatization, and globalization. He realized that if we want to not get into this problem of BOP crisis, balance of payment crisis, we need to undertake some effective measures that would make us an economy which performs as per the norms and also serves the people of the nation. So let's see what is liberalization. Liberalization is process of providing freedom of trade. If you remember, if you ask your elders in your family, you will know that earlier there used to be license Raj. That is, in order to do any economic activity, you are required to have permission from government to have license. Now having the license is not in itself a bad thing. But if the terms and conditions for getting that license are complex, then the economic activity could be restricted in our country, and that was happening. Hence, liberalization was introduced. Now let's see what was privatization. See, a lot of business were undertaken by government. Government was doing a lot of businesses, whether it be petroleum, fuel, mining, any business you say, government was present in it. And because of this, performance was not coming out. See, you would generally observe that if there are two companies, one is government, one is private, both are producing, both are in the same field, same industry, private would perform well because of the efficiency it brings with it. That is why the idea of privatization was introduced. Companies which were owned by government were gradually sold out. Gradually they were sold to private players, and also private players were promoted to indulge into market activity without licensing. Easily they were allowed to get into market. The last point remains is LPG, G for globalization. Globalization stands for, the idea is, if we are restricting our economic activities within our borders, a lot of investment would not come into our country. Job opportunities would not come into our country. Though we have already discussed the advantages and disadvantages of closed and open economy, but we needed the advantages of the open economy. Hence, we also introduced globalization. Now, once this idea was introduced, our economy started performing very well, and continuously 5-year plans were introduced, and they were performing well. 1992 the plan was introduced. It is considered most successful plan. And again 97 another plan was introduced. The objective was stable growth. 2002 another 10th 5-year plan was introduced. Objective was inclusive growth. 2007 we observed 5-year plan. Objective was 5 years faster and more inclusive growth. 2012 the last 5-year plan came in, that is 12th 5-year plan. The objective was faster, sustainable and inclusive growth. So here we conclude our 5-year plan, guys. In the next short video, we'll cover up Niti Aayog. Till then, revise it, understand it, and also if you can see the previous year questions, that would help you. Okay guys, thank you.